Hey folks, welcome back to the channel, welcome along to another video, and today we're going to go through my full review of the 2021 Boardman URB 8.8. If you have watched the initial impressions video, there is going to be a little bit of overlap here between the two videos, but we'll make sure that everything is covered in this one so that I can give a good impression and opinion of the bike. So I bought this bike and I've got some notes here to make sure that we cover everything, and if there's anything missing from here or if you have any questions about the bike, please comment below and I'll make sure to address those. As the video goes on, I do have some footage of me cycling the bike, looking around about the bike's frame, and I've got a comparison as well with my friend's bike, which is a 2020, I think, HYB 8.8, so we'll take a look at that as well. So yeah, I've had the bike for 2 months now. I bought this one at the start of February, and in that time I've covered 200 miles on the bike, and that 200 miles I've did cycling on the main roads. I've done cycle paths, canal paths, up hills, down hills, and in mixed weathers as well. But at the same time as doing that, I've also been alternating between the URB and my carbon road bike, which is the Boardman SLR. So I bought the bike from Halfords for £700, and shortly after that it was selling for £750, which has come to, I think, was pretty good value for the bike overall. The strange thing is though is that there's no price for the bike now. I'll put a photo up of a screenshot here. When you go to Halfords now to look at the price of the bike, it just shows NA. So last year there was a very big shortage of bikes in the UK. When I bought this bike from Halfords, they told me that they were building bikes constantly. So I'm not sure if maybe they're just struggling to cope with the demand there. It sounds kind of similar to what happened last year. So when I bought the bike from Halfords, I had them build the bike for me just to save some time and hassle. And I guess with regards to the bike build, there was no issues with the bike build at all. The pedals come off easy, which we'll talk about in a little second. And yeah, around about 100 miles, after the first 100 miles or so, I did have to tighten up the headset on the bike. It had become a little bit loose. You notice that when you apply the front brake and rock the bike back and forward, it becomes a little bit loose. I'm quite hands-on and handy with bike maintenance, so it's no big issue. But even for someone who wasn't, a YouTube video would show you very quickly the Allen bolts that you would loosen off and what to tighten to address that. It took literally 60 seconds to do, and it's something that's not unusual, something you could come to expect from any sort of new bike as you ride it through, in addition to things like cable stretching and other things coming loose. So with regards to the appearance of the bike, one thing you'll notice in the video clips I'm going to include throughout this video is that the bike is dirty. Now, I didn't buy this bike to keep it clean. This is a bike that I bought for a purpose. I specifically bought this one with the carbon belt to ride it in bad weathers, in dirty environments, and to commute in through the course of, well, all year round, because I do cycle to work. When I'm at work, I mean, that's over a year now since I've been in the office, but when I go back to work, this will be the bike that I take to and from work every single day. So excuse the fact that the bike's dirty, and I don't know if I'll clean it, to be honest. I might just leave it as it is. One thing I wanted to point out is that most people don't realise the bike's green. So in the video clips you can see quite clearly that the bike is a green bike, and it has a nice matte finish to it, which I quite like. The carbon bike I've got has also got the matte finish. But yeah, a lot of folk don't realise it's green. They think it's black. And I'd taken a photo, which I'll include here just now. I took a photo of it when I was out the cycle path, when the sun was shining against the bike, showing how green it was. Just boasting that, you know, it shows off the green paint colour. And a couple of people commented on my photo saying they didn't realise it was green. They thought it was black. So I don't know if that's a pro or a con. I quite like the green. And like I said in the initial impressions video, the shade or the tint of green is very similar to that of the iPhone 11 Pro, the green colour that it came in. And I quite like it. You know, I think it's a good looking bike. Again, like I said in the first impressions video, the negative for the appearance was the welds on the frame. The welds are really poor, and you can see that in the clip which I'll show you, where it compares the bike to my friend's HYB 8.8 from last year, and also comparing it to the Boardman SLR I've got, and the Boardman Team Hybrid I had a couple of years ago. This is the worst Boardman bike I've had in terms of welds on the frame, so that's certainly the poorest area of this bike. But in the grand scheme of things, it's a very minor point. It's something I'm not too upset about, but it's one area of improvement I guess I would highlight out to the Boardman team when they're coming out with the following year's model. I didn't actually look at the Boardman 8.9 to see if it's any better, so that's one I need to check as well. In terms of equipment the bike comes with, so it came with like a canvas saddle, and it's got a canvas style handlebars, and you'll see in the clips that I took that saddle off. It's very uncomfortable, which we talk about in a second. I replaced the saddle with a spoon charge, which is the saddle that I've used on my other bikes in the past. It's a fairly cheap saddle, around about £25, that is very comfortable, but saddles are a very subjective thing. One saddle that's comfortable for me may or may not be comfortable for you, and people's bums are all different sizes, which contributes to that. The bike came with a bell and reflectors. Again, I took those off. I don't really need reflectors. I did fit some LED lights, and the bell that came with it was fine, but I've put one on that's like I think it's called a Knog Oi, the bell that's on it. It just gives a louder, longer ding, if you will, if you're riding on cycle paths or canal paths. The bike, in terms of equipment, comes with good space or good mounts for mounting mudguards and pannier racks. Now, you can see in the videos, and I did upload a separate video about the mudguards. I fitted Bontrager NCS mudguards to the bike that were very easy to fit. They went onto the bike absolutely no problem, so that's a real win for this bike. It comes with a Shimano Nexus 7 hub. So the Shimano hub in this bike is sealed. That means, so in the Alpine 8, for example, you can take a little bung out, like a grub screw bung out, drain the oil, and then fill it back up. This hub isn't like that at all. I think to actually service the hub in this one, you do have to disassemble it. I don't even know how you do it. I think you disassemble it and then dip the internals into almost like a pot of oil, something like that. So I haven't really looked at that, but anyway, that's sealed. I'm not sure if that's a pro or a con in terms of maintenance. The bike came with Tektro disc brakes with Shimano rotors. So Shimano discs, but the actual brakes themselves, the calipers, are Tektro. And those are really, really good. Actually, they're very impressive. I had a Voodoo Bizango mountain bike, and it came with Shimano brakes. My friend's HYB has Shimano brakes. They're really good. The Tektro ones are no better or no worse. I would say they're very similar there. So that's pretty good. It comes with Shimano shifter, a Shimano shifter, and brake levers. Obviously, there's only one shifter on this bike on the right-hand side because there's only one thing that you shift, which is the hub. Obviously, the shifter on the left of the bike would be used for the front derailleur, which being a belt drive bike, this bike doesn't have. And even if it wasn't belt drive, a lot of these bikes with hub gears, or even bikes without hub gears now, don't have a front derailleur. A lot of them are going for this 1x10 or 11 drivetrain, so that's no big deal. And it came with flat pedals as well. Again, I took them off. You'll see in the clips I fitted Shimano SPD 520 pedals onto this bike. I use a set of winter cycling boots with SPD cleats on them, so I just use those on each of the bikes I have. So again, the pedals that they put on there come off easy, so Alfords didn't tighten them up really tight. A lot of people do this when they build a bike, or even people when they put their own pedals on, they tighten them up as tight as they can get with no lubrication, and getting them off can be a real challenge at times, but Halfords didn't in this case. So looking forward to riding the bike, the first thing I wanted to call out is that this bike is branded and marked as a commuter, that they suggest it's a good commuter urban bike. It's very capable of a lot more. I've cycled this bike in all roads, in all weathers, and it's actually really, really good. It's not the type of bike you would want to do a time trial on. I think it might be a little bit of a challenge to do a sportive on, so something pushing 100 miles might be a little bit tricky compared to a road bike, but it's for most people who do 30 to 50 milers at the weekend, this bike's absolutely spot on. The riding position is quite upright, so the bike has got flat wide handlebars. Again, because the market is an upright bike, something you would ride in the city, it's quite good for that. But it gives you good visibility. It's very comfortable. I do ride a road bike and I have some back issues, and I find this bike very comfortable to ride. And I think for people who are, I don't know why, but some people are dubious of using dropped handlebars, well, this bike's a good fit. I did mention that the saddle was very rough on this bike. The first ride I did on this bike was 20 miles on a cycle path back and front, and I found the saddle real uncomfortable the following day. I felt it, so that was the first thing to go for me. I would recommend, if you're buying this bike, to budget for another saddle. Some people commented on the first impressions video saying the same thing as well. So yeah, I would just budget for a new saddle when you buy this bike. As you pedal it, because it doesn't have a chain, it's got a very quiet drivetrain. It's very, very smooth as you cycle it. When you stop pedaling, if you're going downhill or cycling along, there is still a freewheel click that you get. But yeah, it's very quiet, and you will notice that in the first cycle that you take it out. The shifting of the bike is very smooth. I don't know why I had this impression that changing gear as you're pedaling was going to be crunchy due to the style of shifter or the internal gear hub. I'm not sure. But yeah, shifting this bike's really smooth. Even if you're shifting when going up a hill, I don't notice it any different or crunchier than any other bike. And one of the cool things that I actually like this a lot more than I suggested in the first video, you can change the gears without pedaling. So if you're sitting at a set of traffic lights in your highest gear, you can shift down to the low gear without having to pedal to bring that in. As I said, I didn't think that was going to be a big deal, but it's something that I've actually quite liked. I think if you're going along a kind of cycle path or coming down a hill and there's a set of lights, so you have to stop at the bottom, well, you can just cycle down there, stop at the bottom, change gear when you stop. That's quite a nice thing. This one's a little bit of a negative, if I'm being honest, and it's climbing hills in this gear. Climbing hills on this bike was a little bit tougher than anticipated. So the negative of the internal gear hub is that the restricted gear ratios. So when you put it into the easiest gear, it's not like the easiest gear on a 1x10 bike, for example. I mean, you put it into the hardest gear, you'll spin this bike out quite easily compared to a 1x10 or a 1x11 drivetrain. The spinning out's not so much of an issue for the reason I bought and most people would buy this bike. But going up a hill, it takes a little bit more effort. My legs got a little bit tired. There's a fairly steep climb where I live, and most people take a couple of breaks going up that hill. On the road bike that I have, I can go up that hill no problem without a break. But yeah, taking this bike, I had to stop for a break halfway up the hill. Bit of a tough one there, and that was using SPD pedals with the whole push-pull thing going on. It hasn't put me off. If I was to go out and do that cycle again, I would go up that hill, and perhaps when I get fit in the summer, I'd get it up at no problem. But yeah, it's something to bear in mind is if you plan to do, 30, 40, 50 mile cycles with a couple of thousand feet of climbs, I think towards the end of that cycle, you're going to feel those climbs a little bit more on this bike than you would do on, say, something with a 2x10, 2x11, maybe even a 2x9, like a Shimano Sora, something like that. Yeah, bit of a difference there. I think the HYB would be a little bit better for climbing hills than this bike would be. I'd mentioned before that the brakes were very good, and that brings me on to the tyres. The tyres are fine. If you're riding in dry weather, it's a nice dry day today. If you're riding in dry weather, it's absolutely fine, no problem. In the wet, the grip's not so good, and if you get a little bit of kind of dirt on your tyre, it's not so good either. And the way that I found this out was when I was braking in the wet. I was going along the cycle path in the rain. I think a dog or something ran out in front of me. When I put the brakes on, the front wheels skidded in the rain, and that's never happened on a bike for me for a long time. And I put that less down to the bike and less down to the brakes, and put it more down to the tyres and the conditions that it was in at the time. So yeah, it's maybe a little bit cautious of hard braking when the surface is wet or loose. And again, I think that's the tyres. And those are Vittoria Zafiro, I think the tyres are. Again, I'm not going to change them. It's something I'm going to be aware of. They're not bad enough that I'd suggest we need to get them out. But yeah, it's something that on the road bike, for example, I would be confident going down a hill in the wet in the road bike with those tyres on at high speed. So that again, that's maybe a little bit of a negative to consider. So I guess as a conclusion, again, if I've missed anything, please comment down below and I'll try and address those questions. In conclusion, this is a really, really good bike. I've absolutely no regrets of buying it. People who have seen the bike have commented and said it's really, really good. The mudguards that I fitted on were a nice addition. I would recommend fitting mudguards with this bike just because it has a capacity to take them, and it will really help if you ride it in all weathers. I will use the bike all year round, but I won't use it as much as I thought. So for that whole hill thing, getting into the kind of the peak in the summer, I like to go out and do maybe a 40 to 60 mile cycle with maybe 2,000 to 3,000 feet of climbs. I think that bike's going to be a little bit tiring for those kind of cycles, much more so compared to the road bike that I have. But again, that's absolutely fine. I think for most people that buy that type of bike, they won't have those issues. But yeah, for me, that's just one of the things that I'm going to do. It's probably something I'll use for my wet days. So if I got out one day and I wanted to go out and do a cycle and it was wet, I probably would take that bike and change my route to one with less hills, just to save my own bike, the road bike, getting dirty. I'd much rather take that bike out, the Boardman URB out with the belt drive, than take out the road bike and have to dry the bike, clean it and re-lubricate the chain. And really, I think it's excellent value for money. I think for most people that are looking at this type of bike for commuting, for family cycles, the £700, maybe even the £750, it's definitely worth looking at. And if you didn't watch the first impressions video, British Cycling do have a discount scheme where you join British Cycling, you can get 10% off any purchases in Halford, which would include this bike. So you could buy the membership for British Cycling, which I think was £26. If it wasn't as much as that, I can't remember. But it will get you, I don't know, £50 off the cost of the bike. So something to think about. So listen, thanks again for watching this video. Any questions, pop them down below. And if you've bought this bike, a lot of people on Reddit, YouTube and Facebook bought this bike following the initial impressions video I made. If you bought the bike, please comment below and share with me what your experiences are. Are you happy with the purchase? Do you wish you bought something else? Is there one particular thing that makes this bike good? I'm going to assume it's the belt drive. I think that's the standout feature for this one. That it certainly was for me. But yeah, just interesting to hear how other people are finding it. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.